blog Lesser Known Gems, and welcome to 2017 and a new booktube year. Now, as a lot of other booktubers, I've decided to talk about one of my reading goals this year. It's kind of an embarrassing reading goal this year, not necessarily because the project is embarrassing, but because I started the project in 2015. This is my third year doing this and I've still not completed it. That's a bit embarrassing, but let's go back to the beginning. Now, the reading challenge I joined in 2015 was a European reading challenge. The reading challenge was to read 5 books set in 5 different European countries. But what I realized when doing that challenge was how little European literature I'd actually read. I'd read some Norwegian, a little less Swedish and Danish, even more less French and Russian, even less than that, one book series from Finland, and a whole lot of English. But other than that, I really hadn't touched upon European literature. It was English literature for the most part. And I wanted to rectify that. I wanted to see some of the diversity within European literature. And I was spurred and inspired to continue this when there became much focus on reading diversely. And you, for example, have this tag where you read one book from each continent. And then a booktuber pointed out that coming from New Zealand, she was bothered by this tag because very often Oceania was referred to as Australia. Australia is a country in Oceania, which is the continent. And she pointed out that despite the fact that the point was reading diversely and reading from all these different continents, it was very often the same countries, or she was talking about Oceania, so it's very often Australian literature that was picked from Oceania. And this sort of, yes, we need to see the diversity within the different continents as well. And so I need to read more European literature, the diversity in European literature. It's 54 countries. I'm going to do this. And the fact that I only read classical literature and has set the bar at 60 years. So the book have been published 60 years ago. And a side note, the reason why I've picked 60 years is because within a cultural history perspective, one generation is referred to as 30 years. So 1960 to 1990 is one generation, and then a second generation. I don't mean fixed 60 to 90. It's just has to be in 30 years. So 60. 2 generations. And I knew that that might be a challenge, but I was like, no, this is going to work, I'm going to do this. And in the 2 years I've been doing this, out of the 54 countries, I've read 16 books. Yeah. And part of that is my problem. I mean, there are books in my bookshelf just waiting to be read. I mean, here I have Switzerland, Poland, Hungary, and Czech. So it's just me not having read them, and then I would have been up in 20 of the countries. And some of it has to do with... so Italy has several Nobel Literature laureates. And one of them is Grazia Deledda. And I thought, brilliant, that's female. We like diversity. We should do that. And so I got her book After the Divorce, which is one of her books that has been translated to English. And I'm not saying this because she is Italian. I don't think this has to do with her being Italian. But wow, does that book have a lot of drama in it. And I keep starting and restarting that book over and over again. But wow, the drama and the screaming and the yelling. And I've been really trying. I don't know if I'm just going to force myself to do it and it will get better, or if I just have to pick another of her books. If you know any of them, please let me know down below. It's just... yay, screaming. No, yay, screaming. I'm really not for screaming. Yeah. But anyway, the reason why I'm making this video has to do with the fact that I was kind of optimistic with this project. And that simply has to do with, despite the fact that the books are there, I mean, all the countries I've looked into have produced literature and produced several forms of literature and even books published before 1957. But it's not so easy to find the literature translated into English or Norwegian or Swedish or Danish. And this surprised me. I mean, we've talked about this before on BookTube. We have projects of this about highlighting the translated literature. And yet, when trying to have this project, that really struck me how difficult it was to find European literature translated into English outside of the 6-7 countries you usually get European literature from. I'm now going to go through the books I have read from the different countries I've read, and I have book reviews of them on my blog. So if you find anything you think it's interesting, it's just going into the blog and read the book review there. But what I really need from you is help to find books or find authors from the countries that I've not read yet, because I need tips. I need help finding these books because they are more difficult to find than I thought, and I've set a limit to reading this challenge through in 2017. I have 1 year and I need to do this. It's too embarrassing, and I need you to help me manage this. So okay, these are the books that I have read until now. From Albania, I read Ando Cacioppi, After Death. Think comedy of error without the error. And know that I don't mean it's just a comedy. From Denmark, I read To Be or Not to Be by H.G. Andersen. A wonderful philosophical discussion of interfaith communities and societies. From England, I read Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, a book that proves that sisterhood can be put above everything else, and it's still being a positive thing. From Estonia, I read the poems by Maria Under, and despite losing a lot with the language, the imagery she shows is absolutely fantastic. From Finland, I read books of Moomin by Tove Jansson. Think children's books written for adults. From France, I read Chérie by Colette, and it made me think about how rare we read about the endings of things and not just the beginnings. From Germany, I read Prince Frederick of Homburg by Heinrich von Kleist. It's a play where everyone is disappointed by the guy that isn't disciplined. Come on, Germany, that's such a cliche. You can do better. From Greece, I read Bacchae by Euripides. And yeah, it's called tragedy for a reason. From Ireland, I read Carmilla by Lefanu, lesbian vampires. From Norway, I read Albertine by Christian Krohg. And this isn't a book about prostitution. It's a book about society's hypocrisy concerning prostitution. And there is a difference. From Romania, I read Mitrea, Cocor by Sadoveanu. And it's the most hilarious book I've ever read, which is about slavery, war crimes, and abuse of power. Absolutely hilarious. From Russia, I read Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. Turgenev is often called Russia's Lazarević. From Serbia, I read short stories by Laza Lazarević. Lazarević is often called Serbia's Turgenev. From Spain, I read Transvestite Nun, which is an autobiography talking about how a noblewoman in 1599 ended up in the US as a soldier. Side note, if you know any books like this, no matter what country it is, I really want to know, because that story was brilliant. From Sweden, I read the story of the Gösta Berling saga by Selma Lagerlöf. It's a feminist book from the most feminist country in the world. And no, that's not just Sweden bragging. It really is considered that. And from the Vatican City, I read The Tale of Two Lovers, written by Pope Pius II. I expected an erotic romp written by a pope. What I got was a fairly well-written romance story written by a poet laureate, published in the 1400s. Well played, Pope Pius II. Well played. So that's all the books I've read until now. I'll keep a link to how it goes on my blog. And please, if you know any of the countries I haven't touched upon yet, help me! And remember, it's better to be a witty fool than a foolish wit.